All right, bring us in, man.
All right, and we are live. Welcome back to Under Pressure Live. Today I'm with Brad Williams, and I'm very excited. Brad and I are going to talk a little bit about the huge convention that we just got back from in Nashville, what an event that was. And today we're very excited because we're going to bring in Eugene Ragland, who we met at the huge convention, who's going to give a little bit of his perspective from an attendee at the event. Just what an amazing event, a lot of amazing people, and I'm really excited today to talk about everything that went down, what people learned, how willing people were to share, some of the great events that went on, like some of the classes. Brad, uh, you spoke there, and I'm excited to get into that as well. So nice to see you, Brad.
Yeah, man. Nice to see you too, Jake. It's awesome to be back on here. Unfortunately, we didn't go live last week from the huge convention, but we can wrap up. Now, Jake, do you mind turning your mic down just a little bit? You're kind of banging off the limiter a little.
Absolutely.
Just quick before we get started. But yeah, I mean, the huge convention, it was definitely huge. The hotel we were at was huge. We heard that there were between 1,400 and 1,500 people that checked in. I even know a few people that were hanging out who didn't check in. So, it was a great turnout, amazing speakers, tons of classes, huge vendor hall. Not to overuse that word or anything, but it was a great event. And I think the cool part is, Jake, this was the first time you've been, right?
Yes.
And it was only the second time that I've attended. I had an opportunity to speak. We're both vendors per se. So I think we can kind of talk about it from a different perspective. We're not like the OGs that have been around forever and ever. And I think that's a good perspective too. That's an important perspective too. But I think we can kind of talk a little bit about it. But we do have a special guest on, and I kind of want to bring him on first and respect his time today.
Absolutely.
Tell us a little bit about Eugene, and then we'll bring him on. Who we're talking to?
So, as you had said earlier, we weren't able to live stream because it was such a packed event. There was always something going on. And one of those events was the lunch. It was a special lunch that there were probably like 30, 40 people in the room. Maybe Eugene has a better count on the amount of people there. But there were very intimate tables where I was actually able to sit down and meet some of the great guys in the cohort there. And one of those people was Eugene. And I have been looking for the podcast for a while for someone who started a relatively new pressure washing company within a year or about a year. And Eugene is one of those guys who started. He's been in the business for about a year. He'll tell us more about his story. But I'm excited to bring you on today, Eugene, because I know you have a great perspective. I've talked to him about the event. He could talk about this forever. So, Eugene, welcome to the show. Nice to have you.
Hi, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
So, I just want to commend you that you are early on in your journey in this business and that you got to one of these events. Man, I wish I had done that earlier in my business. What made you decide to spend the time, spend the money, and make that investment in going to huge?
My wife. really, she is the
Smart
reason
wife.
why I went. She said it's an investment into the company. Like, you're right. I wanted to go last year. I started my business in end of July of 2021, and I've listened to podcasts and heard about the huge convention, but I didn't have the funds at the time, and I'm like, I'll go next year. And then this year came, I'm like, maybe next year. It's like, no, just go do it. You're already in it. You sacrifice all this time and effort into it. Why not keep investing into yourself and into the company? Like, okay, I'll do it. So I went, and I do not regret it one bit, and I will be at every single convention that I can possibly get to. It was amazing.
So I just want to point out that Eugene is one of those guys that's doing everything right at the beginning of his business. He's listening to the industry podcast. He's going to the events. And so, Eugene, I'm curious, from your perspective, what was surprising about the event? Was it just so much different than the community online that you were shocked when you were there?
Totally different from the Facebook groups that I'm in, because the Facebook groups, they bicker and battle and want to say, why are you sharing industry secrets? Why are you trying to help the new guy? We all started new, so why not help everybody? And that's why I loved about the convention. Everybody there was to help everybody. everybody was like-minded and everybody wanted to see everybody succeed. And it was so amazing to see the camaraderie at the convention. It was amazing. I loved it.
Absolutely. I can see from your perspective, being someone who's new in the industry, that can be intimidating to go to an event like this when you might see some intimidating stuff online for a new guy. So being new into the industry, I'm sure it was intimidating, but you got over that hump. And I'm curious, what were your biggest takeaways from this event?
My biggest takeaway was probably networking and just listening. I've heard, everybody's heard it. We have 2 ears and 1 mouth. You know, you can ask a question, but listen. Don't interrupt. Listen to what they have to say. They're there for a reason. Their vendors are there for a reason. There's special guest speakers for a reason. Listen to what they have to say. They're not going to guide you in their own direction. And you take for what it's worth. And so if you hear something good from one person, take it. If you hear something good from another person, take it. And build your own conclusions and build your own company how you see fit to fit yourself.
Absolutely.
What was your like favorite class or speaker, Eugene?
I really liked the Thomas guy, the Black Hawk Down guy. I'm military. I'm a Marine, so had a special place just to hear his story. But I follow Jason Diamond a lot. So I liked his class. But then I went to a class about he was a firefighter, and he was just talking about his systems. And I learned a lot from that class there, because systems is something I never knew about until I started my own company and realized we all have a system every day that we have and we use. And so learning about his systems and how to put systems together was an eye opener.
What have you been able to like bring anything back and start implementing it yet, or?
Yeah, I've started to create my core values for my company. I think that's a big thing that I did take away is you got to have a core value. You got to stick to it. And when I do grow next year and hire an employee, I want that to be the key, is that we have a core value and we stick to it. Just like the Marine Corps, we have a core value. And it's the bedrock of the company.
Oh, I love that. I love that. I mean, if you don't know who you are, how are you going to attract the right customers, the right people to work with you? I mean, you got to know who you are if you want other people to know who you need. Right. So that's
exactly. You can't hire somebody if you don't know who you are.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I'm curious, Eugene, as you're listening to these speakers like Kenny Thomas and like the Jasons of the world in pressure washing, are you taking a lot of your past experiences from the military and seeing how it translates to the business world now? I'm sure there are a lot of lessons in there that you could pull out for someone who's just starting from square one today.
Oh, yeah, there's a ton from the military. I come from a construction background as well. So there's so much from the military, the construction background that I implement into my company. Main thing is hard work. You have to work hard if you want to succeed. Hard work always pays off. Hard work and dedication. A work ethic is something you can't learn. A work ethic is something you have or you don't have.
Yeah. So before the convention, Brad and I did a little live stream about events and how to take advantage of them the most. And one of the things that we talked about was networking. Some of the least tangible aspects of the event can be the most valuable. So I'm curious, did you make a lot of contacts at the event? Was that your goal? And I'm curious to how was that experience as someone who hadn't been in that environment before at an event like this? And how easy was it for you to connect for someone who's worried about connecting an event?
So when I got there, I had no clue what to expect. So I went in there blind. I figured I'd go to the classes and listen to the classes and take what I can from there. But I found out that the classes are great, don't get me wrong, but being able to connect with other like-minded individuals, other business owners, they give you tricks of the trade. We pass out business cards. I met a couple people from Ohio. I'm from Ohio, and I met a couple guys from Columbus where I work at. We've been networking. We've been talking the past few days. So I think the huge is huge, and it's awesome. The classes are great, but to rub elbows with everybody that's there, that's what it's worth. That there is a key thing to me because I've got a lot of new connections just from that 2-day event that I would have never got ever if I didn't go. I can watch all the podcasts. I can listen to all the podcasts. I watch all the YouTube videos I want. But to be able to talk, text, talk, and FaceTime with people that's there is worth everything.
You know, I know when I went to my first industry event, and it wasn't the pressure washing world. When I went in, you know, I had this idea of what our business could look like, and then went to an industry event, and I was like, "Oh, I think we lost Eugene."
Hopefully
But
we
it
get him in.
totally,
Oh, there we go.
he's back. He's back. But yeah, I went in and I had this like one viewpoint. It was like this little thing of like what my business could be like. And then I went to an event and I was like, wow, it can be so much more. There's this whole new world. Did you experience anything like that, Eugene? Or were you, because you were connected online, you already kind of had that feel for like what you could build? I mean, did it open that for you at all?
You're muted, Eugene. Sorry.
I had my phone and it kind of went away from everything. I didn't hear the last part. I'm sorry.
So that is a fantastic question from Brad, because we had talked about this. Brad, can you ask that again? I know he's got a great answer.
Yeah. So when I went to my first industry event, it totally opened up my perspective on what was possible. You know, I left and I was like, oh, wow, we can do so much more. There's so much more possibility. Did you experience something like that too?
Absolutely. I went in because we're afraid of the unknown, right? We're afraid of change. I work full time as a union construction worker. I make pretty good wages. I have insurance. I have benefits and all that. My biggest fear is walking away from something that is secure and safe. When I walked in there and I started talking to people, I realized that there's nothing to be afraid of. The only way you're going to fail is you fail it. You make it fail. So going in there and seeing all those business owners, all those entrepreneurs that made it, is still making it, gave me a ton of hope that, yeah, it's possible. How bad do you want it? So, yeah, I was there. I had situations where I'm like, am I doing the right thing? Is this right for me? And it is. I 100% believe that it's right for me. Mm-hmm. Going there, it changed my mind and gave me better perspective to don't doubt myself. That we are the biggest doubters, and we are the biggest. This space between our ears will destroy us. Get outside of our head, we can manage and do what we want to do.
I love that take there, because it just shows the excitement you have after an event. And that's something Brad and I talked about in the live stream 2 weeks ago, is that these events, if anything, if you don't get anything from them, at least listening and seeing other people's blueprints can excite you and motivate you to grow bigger, grow harder, grow faster, grow more efficiently. And so one way I like to think about this, Brad, I know you've heard this before, but I think it was Dirk and a speech in IUB. Dirk Van Rieden said that you need to break your own blueprint, right? You need to break that mold. So if you come into something with a fresh perspective and you're saying, hey, this is my mold, this is the blueprint of what I can grow and how I can grow it, and it's just you as a single owner operator, you know, going to an event like this can crack that mold wide open and show you it doesn't have to be just what I was thinking by myself. It can be, you know, a bunch of other people's ideas of what to grow a business. Like you were saying, Eugene, now you're getting everyone's perspective and you're saying, wow, it doesn't have to be just me on the truck. I can hire someone. I can have third parties do different parts of your businesses, like quotes and bookkeeping and marketing or answering the phones. So as you go to an event like this, you're learning what people are doing, and it kind of cuts off the learning curve and at the same time expands your view. You say, hey, this is possible. So were there a lot of things that you saw at this event that you didn't even know were possibilities for your pressure washing business that now you're like, wow, that's something I could do?
Yeah, when I started strictly as pressure washing or soft washing and downstreaming. Listening to podcasts and everything. I expanded my services to gutter cleaning. And then I expanded my services to window cleaning. And then I just built me a water fed pole system. I just made that this past week. Being there, I wanted to get into Christmas lights, and being there and talking to people that do Christmas lighting is something I'm definitely going to be adding to my services.
Mhm.
I'm going to dabble in it this year, and I'm going to go hard for it in 2023 for Christmas lighting. So yeah, I'm in a lot of services already. I think I'm probably a little too much for one person, but next year I plan to expand because of, like I told you earlier, I didn't really start my company to grow. I started my company just to have something for my kids, some time freedom. But as I always refer to podcasts, build your company to sell, even if you don't sell it. So I am going to build my company as I'm going to sell it, even if I don't sell it, just so I can be expandable and not be limited.
Mm-hmm. So now that you mentioned that, I'm curious, are there any resources that you'd recommend for someone just starting out? And then for someone who hasn't been to an event yet, are there any resources that you'd recommend? Hey, go check out this person, go listen to what they're doing. They have a good framework. Anything like that you'd recommend to the guys just fresh starting out?
Yes. YouTube is your best friend. YouTube will expand to podcasts. Podcasts will expand to the huge convention or any other convention you can get to, because conventions is great. Podcasts are great. YouTube's great. But
so
you have to be strong. You have to be determined to get it.
Yeah. So I know that a lot of that started for you with the podcast. So I'm curious, what podcasts are you listening to that you'd say to someone, hey, you got to check these industry podcasts out?
There's this one podcast that I think it's called Under Pressure. It's a pretty good podcast.
Yep.
Yeah.
Welcome.
It's pretty good.
Thank you. So I'm
but yeah,
glad.
No, I
What's
was
that,
just going to say, I appreciate Eugene, man. That was awesome for you to come share all that with us. Appreciate the plug. I know Jake does. He does an awesome job with all the Under Pressure interviews.
He's amazing.
Thank
Is
you.
there any other takeaways that you have that, I mean, maybe we didn't ask, or things you're thinking of that you'd like to share?
You have to get outside your comfort zone. If you're comfortable, you're not going to get to the next step.
I love that.
So the biggest thing is to get outside your comfort zone, make yourself uncomfortable, meet new people, ask questions, and you'll succeed. You'll make it.
One of my favorite quotes from is "Comfort kills."
Yes. Yes.
You know,
Absolutely.
We want to find our comfy spot, but man, you can't live there if you want to grow a business. You want to have freedom. You know, you want to build something for your family. So I love that. Eugene, thanks for coming on today.
I appreciate it. I appreciate it.
It's so real. And like, what are you most excited? Before you get off, one more question. What are you most excited about for the next year? Are you going to be going full time? Is this just kind of a part-time gig for you? Like, what's the next big thing for Eugene?
My next big thing for Weir One Pressure Washing is March 1st, 2023. I'm going to go full time in pressure washing.
That is
congratulations.
Awesome. We want to get you back on here.
Okay, I'd be honored to. Yeah, I wrote on my board in big letters that March 1st, 2023 is my last day in the Union Sheet Metal.
That is awesome. Well, when that happens, we want to get you back on here. We want to hear all about it. We want to be a part of your journey. Anything else?
I'd love to share it.
Yes, absolutely. So one thing I want to say is that Eugene is actually going to come on Under Pressure for a recorded podcast, one of the traditional podcasts we do. For a while, as I had said at the beginning when I was introducing him, we've had a lot of people on that are experts and influencers in the field that have been in the industry for years. And when we ask them, what are the best ways to start out now? A lot of people say they're too far removed. It's been so long since they started from scratch. So that's why I'm so excited to have someone like Eugene on who's doing all the right things, listening out to the right information and resources, going to the right places. And he's taking his company that he just started about a year ago, and he's about to go full time with it. So that's why we're going to have him on the show to talk about starting a pressure washing company from square one today, now in 2022. I'm very excited for this because you're in it. You're doing it. You know the relevant stuff, the stuff that matters right now. And so I'm very excited to have him on. So check out that podcast. That'll be coming soon.
Awesome.
All right.
Looking forward to it.
I appreciate your time.
Well, thank you. No, we appreciate your time. Thank you very much, Eugene, for coming on.
Yes, thank you, Eugene.
It's been an honor. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Take care. Have a great day.
You too.
Thank you. We'll see you.
Well,
He's awesome.
Yeah, that's really cool, man. I love when people go out and like take that step to do the new thing, to go to the event. I really feel like education is one of the harder things for newer business owners, sometimes
Mhm.
even I mean seasoned business owners to make. It's like I don't have time for that. I don't have time for that. I don't want to spend money on that. I need to work. Working is what pays the bills. But the truth is, if you don't expand your horizons, you get stuck in a rut. And,
Absolutely.
I always hope that I'm able to keep that insatiable desire to learn the next thing, the new things, and not ever be
Mhm.
like, well, I already know all that stuff. There's nothing for me to learn there,
And that's when you start shrinking, right? That's when you start going backwards. When you when you think there's nothing left to learn, and we've heard that over and over again. Is the more you know, the more you know you don't know, right?
If you have a learning mindset, if that's your baseline as a learning based person, then absolutely. So Jake, I'm dying to know, you and I got very little FaceTime at Huge.
I
You
know,
avoided
so
me the whole
busy.
time. So
I
I
was
want to
hunting for
know,
you.
like, what was your thought about the show? I mean, like, I've heard a lot of people, talk about like the hotel. I don't really care about the hotel. Whatever. It was really big. Yes,
It
it
was
was
too
hard to
big.
get to. Yes, it
I
took
got
20
lost in the
minutes to
garden.
walk places. Yeah, we all got lost there's like 62 atriums,
Yeah,
but outside of that, like,
absolutely.
what was your take of going? And I mean, like, I think we can be unfiltered. The Huge isn't paying us. I mean, I
Yeah.
hope they invite me back to speak again next year, but
So I I loved it. The people there were amazing. They got great people there. They were fantastic vendors, and that's what I want to comment on first. These were fantastic vendors who, even if they're competing with each other or not necessarily aligned, there was so much communication in a good way, of a way of trying to raise the standard of the industry by connecting and saying, hey, how can I help you? How can you help me? So from a vendor perspective, it was fantastic. Now, from the attendee perspective, which I'm not an attendee, I was there as a vendor, but I did talk to many of the attendees like Eugene, and that's why I wanted to have him on. For me, it was impressive to see how willing to share information. As Nikki said in the comments here, everyone was amazing and supportive, and regardless of what you expect coming in, based on if you're new and you get mixed responses online, or you're posting things that people aren't responding, that's not at all what an event like this is. This was an event where people were very willing to help you grow your business. And then not only did you come out motivated, like we talked about 2 weeks ago, but I also want to mention the accountability aspect of it. I love that you can meet someone at one of these events that will kind of want to mentor you or take you on and under their wing. And one of those things is like what just happened here. Eugene came on the show and said, hey, I've been doing this part-time. I built my business up. It's in a comfortable place, but I went to the Huge. I was motivated. I learned what I could do. And then now he just said something on a live stream that I'm going to check in with him and say, hey, Eugene, how's it going? So he's kind of holding himself accountable by putting that out there into the zeitgeist, into the community. So it's great to see
yeah.
that not only do you have all the resources, but you also have that like support network to grow. And one of the other things I want to talk about Huge is that they didn't just have industry speakers. One of the people that Mr. Thomas that Eugene mentioned was Kenny Thomas. And I love this because there's so many industries that you can pull insight from or advice from that isn't necessarily relevant exactly to, like, specifically to your industry. So this was a guy who's talking about Kenny Thomas was in the operation that the movie Black Hawk Down was based off of. And he was giving fantastic information from his experience in the military. And that you can see the wheels turning in everyone's head that was at that launch. You can see people are saying, all right, how do I apply this to my business? And in the like product management world, they call that not invented here. What can you take from another industry and just plop it into your system, right? So I think that's the biggest thing of one of these conferences is whether it's industry information or information from outside of the industry, you can take the pieces you want and plug it into your system. Now, I also was impressed with the vendor hall. I love the vendor hall, and there were a lot of people. I do just wish there was more time for me to be at the booth to find more attendees, right? The issue I had with the event was that there was just so much going on that it was hard for me to check off all the things on my list that I wanted to do prior. One of them was spending more FaceTime with Brad to talk to Brad a little bit. And
Yeah.
It's tough when it's such a big event and like geographically huge as well. Seriously, you weren't kidding when it could take 20 minutes to get from one side of the hotel to the other. I remember I got lost in the garden one time and I wanted to go to a speech and I was almost late because I was stuck in the garden in the hotel trying to get out of the walking paths that were just looping around.
Yeah, dude, I tried to find the fitness center and like I saw on the map, like it was out in front of the vestibule that you drive under, right? The portico.
Yeah.
Was in the building on the other side. So naturally I walk through the lobby, I go outside, I circle this building and realize there's no doors in it. So I go back inside and you had to like go upstairs in another section of the hotel and like walk around the catwalk on the upstairs and then go through a hallway and up some stairs and it was hidden back there. So yeah, there was definitely some challenges, but I got a lot of steps in. I think Raymond Burke said that the other day on his live, lots and lots of steps in. I am curious, like you mentioned being a vendor. There was a lot of great vendors there, but as a vendor, like, I think this is a really interesting perspective because everybody, you know, we've been a vendor at a lot of shows and we always like wonder, like, what's the show like? And, you know, like you can be a vendor at one show and it's like, this is the best experience of my life. Like, I'm so glad I'm here. And you can come to some shows and be like, why did we get on a plane? Because and it's not that the people are bad or that the event's bad. It's just not good for vendors. But like as a vendor, what was your experience like having a booth? Like how just kind of walk me through that. Like, you know, if you were sharing this with somebody else who was thinking about being a vendor,
so
what was that like?
What I will say, because actually I spoke to a few vendors yesterday who wanted to talk and see, you kind of debrief on the event, and there were relationships that I had just made at the event, and that's fantastic. But I think the biggest takeaway for me after reflecting on it is these events are what you make them, right? So getting a booth for us might not be, if you're just looking at the booth and the cost of the booth and everything, it might not be worth it just because of the fact that we weren't at the booth too much because there were too many people to talk to that I had on my list of people to talk to and further that relationship with. So I was away from the booth a lot of the time, just communicating with a lot of the people that I had started relationships with and wanted to see how we could help each other, all that stuff, talk about the industry and the state of the industry, all that. But what I will say is if you look at a microcosm of, I'm just going to bring up this comment just to show you. So Nikki here said, Jake did VIP lunch. Was that worth the cost? And that's just a microcosm of this conversation. That lunch is not worth the cost if you go there for lunch, right? If you're just there to eat the food and you're not really talkative, it's absolutely not worth it. Don't do it. But something like that, if you're there to meet someone and talk, absolutely worth it. If you can meet one person that can tell you, from a vendor perspective, you can meet vendors and attendees that you can sign up for your product or service, and vendors that you can work with as referral partners or learn something from them. But one huge aspect here is if you are an attendee or a vendor and you go to one of these lunches or you just have a conversation, you don't even have to go to lunch, but if you have one of these in-depth, like intimate conversations and you can learn something that tweaks the effectiveness of your business and you can be a little more efficient, absolutely worth it. I could see that people were learning things right away that they're like, oh, I could implement that in my business right now. And if you implement one thing that even, changes your margins by like 0.5%, oh, absolutely worth it. Right, Brad?
Yeah, I'm enjoying what you're saying. I'm just soaking it up, man. Dropping wisdom. But I mean, that was a really good point though. Like you can't look at like the face value of things. When we live, I think there's, we talked a lot about events a couple of weeks ago, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's a couple of ways to look at it. You can look at it from a sales perspective, right? Like I go to the event costs this much money for the booth, this much money for the hotel, this much money for the plane tickets, this much for the egregiously expensive hotel food, $10 waters, $32, sandwich. And you're adding up how much sales did I get out of it? How much pipeline? do I have? Like I've got 10 names. Out of those 10 names, 3 are going to buy in the next 90 days. 3 are going to buy in the next year. Was it worth it? But I love what you're describing, because for a lot of us, there are benefits to being at an event that you can create that are deeper than that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it was like you might learn something from another vendor that you could implement into your business, or from a speaker, because the speaking applies to us too.
Oh yeah.
That we can go and increase our margins of 0.5% or 1%. And like, you know, if your business is doing, you know, just flat round number, like $1 million, $2 million a year, I mean, that's 10, 20 grand a year. It pays for the event for sure.
Absolutely.
You know, and then, you know, beyond that, like, what is the larger pipeline goal for you? And I think we oftentimes, like, we're playing this zero sum game.
Mm-hmm.
In this industry, it's like, oh, so and so over there, they're my competition. And like Eugene really brought that out. I loved what he was saying. You know, we need to find ways to work together, because a lot of us at the event, like, and I'm thinking, like, if I had a booth, I didn't have a booth, you guys had a booth, and y'all are my people. You know, Bergflow had a booth. You know, we were connected to some of that. But if I'm looking at it, I'm like, who can I meet there that if we could do business together, maybe they're not my customer, but we can work out a relationship where we can, you know, share and help each other. And it's not just about sales. Like, it's about, like, man, if you like with like you guys, right? Like, you know, you guys help people, you know, take the cost of processing out.
And that's a huge percentage. So that could be 15 to 30% of the profit margin. Absolutely.
So I think about that. And then I think it's not just, can you refer me clients or can I refer you clients? It's like, I know people in my network that could use that margin. So I can help them. Like, you become an asset to me because your service helps my people, not just my company, but my clients, my customers.
That's so funny you say that. Yeah. Sorry, keep going.
No, it's all good. I'm sure there's a delay on my internet connection is terrible. We have to fix that.
A little bit, but this is such a great point, Brad, because yesterday I actually spoke to a vendor, and it was their first time going to an event like that. I think it was absolutely their first huge. It might have been their first pressure washing event. This vendor called me up and was like, "Hey, I want your take on it because we didn't see the sales we wanted to see." They had a goal in mind. They went to this event. They didn't hit that goal. And they were still happy with the event because of the relationships they made. And so now that is exactly the conversation we had, is that, hey, maybe I didn't see the sales and it's not in my pipeline right now, but it can be because I made a connection with a vendor that we have aligned interests, right? So say, I'll give you an easy example because we see this all the time. Say I'm there as Pair Payments, which I was. Pair Payments is a payment processor, right? Everyone can use payment processing. But the service we offer, no fee processing, that gets you that money back, eliminates your credit card fees, and now you're getting 15 to 30% more profit margin. You can now spend more. So what does that mean for someone who does, say, marketing? If you're a marketer and your client doesn't have the capital to achieve the marketing campaign of their dreams, you say to them, hey, I know you are in a growth mode. You really want to grow. So why don't you just connect with Pair Payments, and there you go. You use their no fee processing, and now you have the budget for the marketing. And so what are we doing there? Now you're having a relationship where a marketer can have their customer improve their quality of life by they're now having a more profitable business. So they can spend more with the marketer and grow their business more. And now everyone's growing, right? The marketer's growing, the customer's growing. We're growing. Everyone is growing together because you now have this little community that's helping each other out, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, you know, we have to be thinking that way, especially with, you know, the state of how things seem to be out there in the world.
Yeah.
You know, we're going to need to look at new ways that we can empower our clients to be more successful, because we have to be successful together. You know, either we win together, or we fail together. So shout out to Bo. Yeah, Nikki and I had breakfast with Bo one day, and we really have enjoyed spending time with him. At our event, at the TCAM event, at Panhandle, at the IWCA event this year. We've really gotten to know him well. But that's like the fun thing of being at it. We're in line for breakfast. There's a 30-minute wait. We're going up to get our table, and there, he shows up. He, instead of getting in line, it's like, hey, just come eat at our table. And, those are like the cool things. And you have like that 45-minute conversation that you might not have had otherwise. And I love the chance encounters here. What else did she say? Oh, yeah. Yeah, definitely a ton of fun to help everybody.
So I want to comment on that real quick, Brad. So
yeah,
in an industry like this, like you're saying, there really can't there really can't be secrets if you want everyone to grow, because as we've said a million times, a rising tide raises all ships. And just like Brad is saying, we either win or lose together. So if I have gone to a bunch of events and I've learned the best way to maximize the value of those events for me, I really feel like it's my responsibility or my duty to share that with others so that they can then maximize their events, that they grow. And then hopefully we can help each other grow, right? So at the end of the day, I really don't like holding on to too many secrets, right? And it's tough when we're doing so many podcasts and live streams to have secrets, because the whole point of these is to help pressure washers grow their business, right?
That's exactly right. I one of my favorite prolific social media guys, Gary Vee. If you don't watch Gary Vee stuff, I mean, you really should. Like, I can't imagine you're living under that much of a rock. But I've heard him give this speech a dozen times, and he says, here's the truth. I'm gonna tell you guys all my secrets on how I do everything. But what I know is that for every 100 of you in here, one of you is going to go and do something about it. Mm-hmm. He said it's never going to be a threat because only so many people are going to act. And I always take just like great like encouragement with that, because my always fear is like, I read a book, I get some information, and then I'm like, everybody else that read this book has this too. But now I know a bunch of people read it, but most people, the book is like, that was awesome, I should do that. Here's my bookshelf, on to the next thing. And so if you're taking action, that's the secret. The secret is putting it into practice. So I want to touch on like one of my takeaways from the event. I went there and we spoke, and I want to talk about that too. I spoke, I say we, Nikki, or you didn't speak, but I spoke at the event, which was great. But what I want to take away is I didn't have a ton of responsibilities. I wasn't at a booth this year. I didn't have lots of, just didn't have a lot of show responsibilities, which was amazing. But we were leaving, and I have thought all week this week, I still only talked to a fraction of the people I had intended, like people I knew I wanted to go and spend time with. I don't get to see, like I'd hoped to, met Megan Likes for the first time, in real life. And like, we've talked a few times, and I think what her and her husband are doing are awesome. And I wanted to spend some time with them, and then Michelle Myers, who also does the Fight Club for business. If y'all haven't checked that out, like check that live stream out. They're an awesome bunch of ladies. But I would hope to like spend some time with her and chat with her. And there was like this whole list of people, and I was like, dang. Like I didn't, and I was very intentional to spend time with people. So I think you have to go into this event. And this is like my big takeaway. You got to have a game plan. Like you cannot go and just be like, it's not Vegas, it's not just like go and let the entertainment wash over you. Like you got to go with the game plan. And like they publish the class schedule, they publish the speaking schedule. I guarantee you've been talking to people online on the Facebook groups, wherever you've been watching people, whatever that is. Go in with a plan. You should not eat a meal at an event that is not centered around spending time with somebody ever.
You got to maximize the time.
You do, and you need a game plan at an event that's as busy as this, because you can't spend a ton of time on the vendor floor, and you certainly can't attend all the classes. Like all this stuff's going on over top of each other, and it's not like, oh, the Huge should have done it different. It's like they just have that much going on. Like they packed a lot into a couple of days. So you need to go in and be like, I want to hear this class and this class. I'm going to have lunch with this person. I'm going to set the appointment ahead of time. I'm going to be here. I'm going to do this. I'm going to be involved. And I think you need a game plan to maximize a big event.
Absolutely. You absolutely do. And one quote I want to bring up is by Mike Tyson, right? Everyone has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. So one thing at these events is they're so packed. And if you have a game plan, you want to talk to XYZ, all of these people, right? You have to factor in the chance that you're going to have some amazing conversations that go for a long time. And now you just missed that speech you wanted to go to, or you missed another person you want to connect with because you had such a great conversation. I just want to bring that up because that's something I've learned at these events. I had say in one afternoon, I had 4 people I wanted to introduce someone to. I went and introduced them to one person, and that conversation ends up being 1.5, 2 hours long. And so now you kind of have to say it's like a game here. All right, we have a finite amount of time. How do I prioritize this list? So I have a plan, but how do I prioritize? All right, what am I doing first? Because everyone has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. Until you
gotta have priorities too. I love that. Absolutely. Here's the number one thing. Here's what I will not leave unless these 2 things happen, because you're not going to get to your whole list. I mean, that's for sure. Because I knew people I wanted to go talk to, and I had every intention. But when things started going, and I do too. I have the 2-hour sit downs face to face with people.
Which is amazing.
They're great people there, and it was a ton of fun. So from a speaking perspective, and I really haven't given this a whole lot of thought, so I guess we're just going to talk it out loud as we go. It was fun. I got to do a breakout. I'm waiting for my call to keynote. I know Nikki's going to be rolling her eyes right now, so hard. What an arrogant thing to say. But, it was really cool, to be at an event that's big enough that there's hundreds of people in the vendor hall, and there's four breakouts going on at the same time. And there was I don't know, 50, 60, 70 people in the breakout that I was in. That's pretty cool that the event is that strong. Because we all know there was really good competition that was vying for that time. And I'm sure some of the other breakouts were way bigger. They did have us up in a corner. We'll be talking to Sid about that. But yeah, I mean, I think it was cool that they broke everything out into these tracks based on what you were going to get out of it. I think that was a really interesting way to do it. They had the strategy and growth track, the marketing and sales track. What were the other ones, Jake? Do you remember, or am I just shooting in the dark here? Cause I don't remember.
They were I couldn't even tell you,
but they were kind of broken down to what you could get out of them. And I think that was really cool. I mean, it was a great opportunity, and I appreciate it. And I hope to be back next year, in our talk, we're involved, the whole BergFlow team. So I think my criticism on the breakouts they were short. And I think when you get into things you have a strategy breakout room, right? It's really hard to teach strategy in 40 minutes.
Yeah.
And so they wanted the classes to be 45 minutes, and then they wanted a 15-minute transition period. And it was look, you guys have to play by those rules, which I get that they wanted the transition period because again, it took a few minutes to walk from one breakout to the next. But I do think in some of these deeper topics, it's hard. And so I think I've heard some feedback, that they're hey, the marketing class, so basically they told me that marketing exists. And it's I have sympathy because yes, you can do more than that in 45 minutes, but I do have sympathy for that because I know that sometimes by the time you kind of lay your foundation of what you want to share with somebody and here's why, here's what we're going to do, it's hard to get into any meaningful meat and potatoes in a short amount of time, especially if somebody's going to walk away with some here, I know what I'm doing. I know why I'm doing it. And here's the steps I'm going to do. And I actually could go out and execute this. I think I think maybe 90 minutes, or like some of the breakout stuff probably could be 2 hours. And I know that that's tough. They're probably not gonna be able to do that. But I do think that if you want it to not feel like a commercial or a tease, I do think what do you think about that, about the length of the breakouts? I mean, am I kind of off base, or
No,
does that
no,
make sense?
absolutely not. So one of the things is, first of all, a lot of these are something that you want to have Q&A after, right? Because they're thought provoking. So build in some time for that, and then that cuts away from your speech, right? So at the end of the day, I don't think you're off base at all. I think you're 100% on here, because what you're saying of you need to lay the foundation. Everyone's coming from a different perspective, and so you kind of need to get on the same plane before you can talk about how to move forward. So if everyone has a different perspective, they're looking at it differently, right? You could both be looking at the same object and think that it's different things. So you kind of need to just get on the same page first. And so how do you do that? Lay the foundation and then move forward with, all right, how to grow if you don't have the same foundation. So I think that is huge. There needs to be a little bit more time. I agree. I was in Dave's. I helped to facilitate with the cameras and everything, and I recorded it. So Dave's speech will be on an Under Pressure podcast for anyone who wants to check it out, or it's on live. It was on Ron Musgrave's live. You can check that out at the Pressure Washing Friends Facebook group. You can see Dave's 10 lessons about baseball. But basically, long story short, at the end of the day, there wasn't enough time for Q&As after. I'm sure that there were people there who had more questions and wanted to ask Dave more, because what he was doing is, like we were talking about earlier, taking lessons from baseball and translating it to a business. And these are like things that you'd say, oh, that's common sense. I hadn't thought about that. But now you can take that, what seems like common sense, and then apply it to business. And then it's not common sense. You're like, wow, I could do that for leadership, and I could build my team out this way. So I think that having time for Q&A is so important, because at the end of the day, these are very thought-provoking breakout sessions. So how do you kind of have time to digest and get deeper into it if you don't have more time for like a Q&A or to get into it more?
Do you think the Huge is paying Nikki over here? Do you think she's getting commissions on those video sales?
I hope so. Do they have an affiliate code? Is it he's put in Nikki 50 to save $50?
Because Nikki is I definitely want to get my commission. No, they did put all the things on video. I think that's a great thing to do. I know they've been doing that for years. Probably something that you want to take advantage of. I mean, the amount of classes in education, even if only 10 or 20% of them are great, like $129 is like a no-brainer. To get that much hours of premium content is absolutely like, yeah, I mean, just do it. Like, that's not a decision to wrestle with. We buy silly things like, go out to dinner or, whatever for $129. So,
yeah. And one thing I will say is that if you missed a speech that you really wanted to hear, or go get it, listen to it, or you could also reach out to these guys. So that's one thing I want to bring back to what Eugene was saying, is how willing and open everyone is to share. So if you didn't have time to ask a question, or the speech didn't have time to get as in-depth as you would have liked, go reach out to that speaker. And I have a feeling they just might reach back out to you and give you some of that information you want. Would you agree, Brad?
Oh man, I have had the pleasure of, I'm really new to the pressure washing space. I've been kind of working on like marketing in this space for a few years, but really compared to people that have been in it decades, it's like nothing. And I've really only been like deep in it for a short amount of time. And I have found that all the people that like you think of as like, they're the movers and shakers of the space, have been so willing to make time and to talk and to share information and build relationships. I think that's really cool. And I hope that that's the direction things go, because one thing, that I've picked up on, and you probably have too, is that there is some politics in and around this industry. And that's probably true everywhere. That there's events and associations and leaders and groups and products and all that. And I think what I like about the Huge is I feel like it is the most apolitical
Mhm.
event of the year. And I think that's a good thing. I think we need more of that. I think we saw more representation, especially from the vendor teacher standpoint across the board than you see anywhere else. And I love that.
Mhm.
The other thing, and I just totally lost this train of thought because I can't talk
Well,
about two things at once. Go ahead.
Yeah, let me speak to that for a second. I think that if you want to make these events as valuable as possible, and you really want to maximize the time and money you spend at these events, you kind of have to be authentic and kind of just like let the ego melt away. Because, like you were saying, with being apolitical, that's when you're the most effective here. When you're building the most relationships and they're going the furthest. So I really think that if you want to build the relationships that'll take you to the next level, you kind of have to just be authentic, ask the questions that you generally want to know, and go to the right people. So when I say be authentic, I'm saying don't come in like, oh, I did $1 million this year. I don't just make up numbers, because these are guys in the industry that I actually had someone tell me like, oh, dude, I've been in this industry for like 20 years. The math doesn't add up on what that guy's saying. So all you have to do is go to these events, be authentic, and just ask the questions you want the answers from, but just don't come from a position of like I'm the hot stuff here. Really, just I think be humble and authentic, and you're asking questions to these people for a reason, because they've been there before, because they can cut off the learning curve, or because they can introduce you to the right person.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right on. Like, that's the thing that's probably that you feel the difference of between a Facebook group and an event like this. And I think this event's a good example. We experienced it at the TChem event too, is the egos get put down quite a bit, that you see online. Everybody is right online.
Brad, you could even see that in a town Facebook group. Someone brings up one thing that you wouldn't think would be political. It's like, oh, that is a totally apolitical post. All of a sudden, everyone's got a perspective. Everyone has to be right about it. It's just, I think that's the nature of Facebook. You don't have much space to share your thoughts, so you kind of just line up and start a firing squad at each other.
It's exactly right. And everybody kind of pounds on their chest like, I'm right. And no one's there to listen. And I think when people get face to face, like they have to check their whatever. And I don't know if it's the same people or not. But I think you kind of check that in real life, and you show people like courtesy and respect, and you listen a little bit more. And go ahead.
That was a really good point you just brought up. I don't know if it's the same people. I love that, because if you're at this event, it's because there's something to learn out there. Some of the people commenting online think that they know it all. So you're already doing the right thing and having the right frame of mind if you're going to this event. So that's why I was harping on asking the questions, because you could go to one of these events and tell everyone what you're doing, and then you can try to help them and you won't grow. Yeah. But if you ask questions, then you'll grow. Ask questions relative to your business, relevant to your business, and then you'll grow. And then there's just so much that you can do to help each other. But sorry, I cut you off.
No, you're good. I think that's the funny thing. Like, I can't imagine going to an event like this and spending my time telling everybody how much I know. Like, what a colossal waste of time.
Absolutely. You don't have to show off.
I mean, maybe it happens. Luckily, I was not exposed to that. I was exposed to a ton of humble, awesome people.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And so, definitely the minority. I'm just saying, it's some of these events you see it where people think there's a big fish in the room, and you got to understand there's always a bigger fish. And if you just have that mentality and you want to go and learn from everyone, and then also you can learn from anyone. You can learn from a guy who's just starting out, and because he's starting at square one, he's looking at something from a fresh perspective and is seeing things that are maybe didn't exist when you started your business. Now maybe there's some new technology or some new innovation. So that's why I love just asking. You do this too, I know. You have to ask questions to everybody so you can get all the perspectives possible. And then, like we said 2 weeks ago, pull out what you can use for your business. You don't have to use everything.
Yeah,
everyone's business is
different. We can use our brains to discern, Yeah. So I do have some. So I want to give a disappointment, a really big disappointment that I had this year. And so we, if you don't know TChem, we're a local industrial services company. We have retail around the pressure washing space, chemicals, all that stuff. So we have a lot of clients that we work with who are pressure washing contractors and business owners. And when I cross section our most successful clients, and I look at all the ones that are doing that I know for a fact are kind of, and I mean that just like a sales wise, the size of their business is the largest. None of them were there this year at the Huge.
Really?
And that disappoints me so much for them. It disappoints me for them. It also disappoints because I feel like, wow, there's so much there to grow your perspective in your business. And it makes me, what I'm disappointed in is where was the miss in the connection? Mm-hmm. Because I don't blame it on oh, shame on them. That's not what I'm saying. Maybe they just didn't know, or maybe I think the event, and I want to just be careful because I have a lot of respect for our amazing clients, and I have lots of respect for the guys that put on the Huge. Mm-hmm. But I think the responsibility, the onus on this ownership falls on the event. Mm-hmm. To share the information in a way so that all those guys, all those ladies would be like, I can't miss this. So either in the past, they've had a perspective that has created that, or the Huge isn't getting the information out that's letting them know there is stuff here that if I want to be a part of taking this industry forward, I want to be a part of the opportunity, I can't miss this. And that's my challenge to the Huge. Because, and maybe that's, I don't know if it's true other places. All I can speak of is a little cross section of people. And I'm like, why in the world have they not convinced all the people who I understand, if maybe you're struggling in your business and you're like, I can't afford to travel right now. I get it. It's that's a big decision. But I'll think about if I had a business that was growing and developing and successful, I'm going to do everything I can to get the edge.
Mm-hmm. You have to be at these events because that's where like we were talking about briefly before, the innovation. That's where you find the innovation. Well, that's where you find out what's happening in the industry. It's something that you might miss because you're not at the event, and then now everyone in your market's doing it, and then they kind of leapfrog ahead of you in that regard. So,
statement of fact here. Statement of fact. Apparently,
that's great. So,
sorry.
No, that's one of the things I wanted to mention is just, you really have to. Even if you don't think you need these events, you got to go to make the relationships and to help even your community grow. So no matter what you break down that community is. So even if it's in your market, share it with your market, right? But if you hear about this event or you hear about another event that you know will be beneficial to you, share it with your community. And if that includes people in your market who might be even direct competitors, you want them to go to this because what is it going to do? It's going to convince them to not be the $99 guys that everyone's complaining about on Facebook and at these events. It's what does that do, Brad? That raises the standard of the industry. It might raise the prices, the level of service. And at the end of the day, you all grow because now you don't have to say, hey, they're charging less, but I have the best service. Now everything's kind of going to grow together and grow the right way. So I just think it's huge for your community. We've said it a million times. A rising tide raises all ships. You can increase the level of service and not have to go down on price if everyone in your community is increasing the level of service. And then I do want to comment on this comment right here from Scott. This discussion applies to most industries, social media versus in-person conferences. Love listening to both. Thank you for that. But this is huge. Like we said, if you have someone in your industry who's not, or in your market or community who's not even a pressure washer, but is another type of contractor, send them this information. We do a podcast in this space, the pressure washing space with Under Pressure, but I also do one in the home inspection space, which is the Inspection Pros. Do you know how many episodes, Brad, I've been able to use for both because the same exact concepts apply? So I really think you got to share this stuff with your community. And if you send it to a home inspector, Jimbo down the street, and then he's got another pressure washing friend who he grew up with and went to high school with, there you go. There's another person in the community that's going to go to the event and grow the right way. And it's just going to grow the industry, the standards of the industry. So I really think
we have both been blessed to be a part of, the same mentoring, coaching, consulting program. And one of the things that we all talk about a lot, that's a big factor there, is we live in a time when the rate of change is beyond what we can adapt to and keep up with. And certainly educate ourselves on fast enough. And so my challenge, to contractors out there, especially if you've been in it a long time, especially if you have a growing business or a large business, is don't forget that learning from other people and sharing is your only way to keep up with the rate of change. The world is changing around us.
100% agree. That is awesome. And one quote I love regarding this is, you can move faster alone, but further together. Right, Brad?
Yeah, exactly. If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. That's not just, it is in your company, but it's also in your industry. I mean, I love what Jeremy says here, if we bring more value around our industry. And that's what I loved about the time I spent with Bo, is he's like, man, we got to up our standards. We got to up our safety. We've got to bring more value as an industry so that we're not racing to the bottom, because we race to the bottom, everybody loses.
And you have to do it together. And that's why you share the information. And if you think you're giving away the secrets, just realize that giving away that secret could help you in the long run.
It absolutely can. And so my challenge to the Huge is, we got to get this message out there. You guys absolutely have to keep pushing and keep elevating your game and getting the message out there that makes people see that they can't miss it. The Huge is not a sell-a-thon. The Huge is not just something to spend money on that vendors come and like sell you more equipment. The Huge is a place to elevate the industry. And I think every event promoter has to start taking this stance of we've got to attract, we've got to connect with those people that don't know that they need it, whether you're new and they're just unaware. Because I've been so unaware as a business owner before, like totally unaware of what's going on in the industry. And I've also been in it's easy to fall in the place. You're like, I already know that stuff. I don't need to go to that class.
Yeah.
To realize that there's still so much to learn. So I think that's probably a good note. I know we've probably gone over our time.
Well, yeah, but there's one thing I want to say, or two things I want to say. One is, if you don't think you in your business have the capital to go to one of these events, give me a call. Let's eliminate your credit card fees and give you the funds to go to one of these events so that you can grow your business, put rocket fuel in your business, grow it to the next level. Absolutely. And then the other thing I want to talk about is you challenged here the conventions, right? Or the events, the Huge convention, to get the message out more, because it is so valuable. It's their duty to get it out because more people need to see this. And like Jeremy was saying, you got to raise the bar. I would also challenge the people at these events, because this is your industry. If you really want to grow your business and grow the industry as a whole, it's also your duty to share this with the people that you know in the industry that might not be at the event. Even if you think that, they might have heard of it, just reach out and say, hey, are you going? Because then you can say, hey, let's meet up and have a drink the day before, or whatever, or let's go grab dinner one night. And now you're solidifying that relationship, and maybe you can help each other. So, yeah. So what Jeremy's saying here, with sometimes we're just unaware. You don't know until you know. Exactly. Go tell someone, go tell 5 people. They'll go tell 5 people about it.
Be a part of the marketing. Be a part of it.
Exactly, because all it does in the end of the day is help you in the long run.
And I want to see more conversations happen. They're like, this is what I learned. This is the value that was there, and less conversations that are like, well, they screwed this up and they screwed that up. Man, nitpicking the venue or the food prices or the this or that, we're not elevating the industry. And I mean, I get it. They need to know how to improve it. But spending our time online telling each other like that water was too expensive.
Mm.
Like, have you ever been to a hotel before? It's called hotel tax. They charge you in the hotel because you bring a case of water if that's an issue. I've been on a lot of trips where we stayed in a condo that was cheap to save money, where we brought food in with us to save money. If that's what you need to do to be there, by all means do that. And if you have constructive criticism and you're like, hey, this speaker wasn't adhering to you're not selling on stage stuff, or this speaker gave amazing value, make sure they come back next year because I want to hear more about this. And then share it. I love what you said. Share it. And it's this event. It's the small local events. They have very different places. It's not, should you do one or the other? Do both.
And it doesn't just have to be you telling someone. It doesn't have to be just, something that you're specifically telling someone. You could just hit share on Facebook. It's that easy. And it doesn't stop at events, Brad. There's so much great content out there that is a huge resource for these contractors. If you are a pressure washer and you listen to a podcast about business building like this one, or so Under Pressure Live or Under Pressure, go share that with someone who can benefit from it. Whatever the podcast is in the industry, there's a bunch of great podcasts out there. Share those podcasts, because if you're learning from it, I bet you someone else is going to learn from it, right?
Yeah, I love it. So, man, that was awesome, Jake. I appreciate it.
We could have gone forever.
I know. And I would stay on another hour. I've got to run to my next meeting, but when are we going to be back?
Let's do next week. I know we missed last week because the huge convention was too huge and we couldn't get away from all the amazing conversations, and I don't regret it. So sorry if you were looking forward to hearing us last week, but we got some great content that we'll put out to replace that. But next week, we're going to do the same time. Let's do Thursday, 1 p.m. and 1 p.m. Eastern, and we'll keep it consistent so that way we can get more and more people asking the live questions, because I love that when people can engage live. That makes this even so much better.
Love it, man. So next Thursday at 1 p.m. we'd love to see you guys back. Make sure to share this. More important than that, drop thoughts, comments, questions, anything you're like, man, what needs to be talked about more. What we'd love to. We don't have the answers. Like, I know a couple of things. Jake he's a lot smarter this way. Jake's a lot smarter than me, but we want to bring that information. That's what this is about. It's about a gathering and sharing of community and of information that's relevant. So if there's something we need to talk about, we're going to have that conversation with that person. So that's what it's about. It's all about, like working together. So thanks for joining. If you heard any of it, if you made it to the end, I always want to say thank you to anybody at the end of a long podcast. Like, you are a champion. Make sure to subscribe. Like, we're on YouTube. You can find us on Facebook, on LinkedIn, wherever you like to get content. You can get the Under Pressure podcast. Obviously, these live episodes will go up as well. Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, et cetera.
Spotify, all of them.
Yeah, and leave us a review. It makes a huge difference on all those platforms to leave a review. It lets the platform know that, like, this isn't garbage. It's okay to share it with some more people too. So thanks for being on. Thank you, Jake. We'll be back next week. Bye, guys.
Bye. And thanks for tuning in.
Still have to